I'm so glad you joined me for today's program, and thank you all of you that are watching the program for things that you've written in and said about how it's blessing you. Enjoying listening and learning. Excellent, from M in India. Y from Wales. We're just giving you the first initial of the names. Wrote wow. Jay from Ohio. Hi, Dr. Gammons. We've been so blessed by the Through the Bible series you're doing. Thank you so much for doing it. God bless you abundantly. C from Arizona. Watched your program today. The Spirit of the Lord came sweetly to me. And I just give you one more from O in the UK. Thank you, Dr. Gammons. This was a word in season. This was a word in due season. So thank you for your comments. And please write and let me know if these programs are a blessing to you. I want us to look today at science and the Bible. We're going to read from Romans chapter 1, verse 18 to 21, where it says, "The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest to them, for God hath shown it unto them." In other words, no one has an excuse for atheism or agnosticism because God has made it manifest to them. God has shown them, but they've chosen not to see it. People are like, well, prove God to me. Well, explain life without God, and there is no explanation. And so deep down in people's hearts, they know that. And atheists are just looking for some kind of excuse to avoid the fact that there is a God. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Just, if you don't believe it, just look around. If I had a beautiful watch and you say, wow, where did that come from? I said, it just evolved. It just happened. It just came from an explosion. You would say I was crazy. And so that's why God says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. It is utter foolishness from God's perspective. The invisible things of this world, of him from the creation of the world, are clearly seen, the Bible says, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. God says the agnostic or the atheist was without excuse, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Neither were thankful, but became vain in their imagination, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And how many people, scientists or so-called scientists, speak out today of why they don't believe in God, and they profess themselves to be wise, but they're fools as far as God's perspective is concerned. Today there was a solar eclipse as I'm recording, and the next one is going to be in 200 years' time. I can't tell you because I didn't look it up, but they know the exact day it's going to happen. That's the amazing precision of the universe that we live in, that 1,000 years from today, should the world continue as it is, they could tell you when things are going to happen. To say it runs like clockwork is an insult to creation. Better than clockwork. And so we concluded our last study by seeing that God is merciful, and that the flood was to protect the future generation from the wickedness and violence. And we saw about the dinosaurs and the giants and other things. We concluded our last study seeing God is merciful. And right up to the fact that he provided a way of escape right up to the last minute. That boat of Noah's could have been full of people, and those who perished were without excuse. As well as Methuselah, who God said when he died it would come, and it did. God gave them 8 other evidences, or 8 other loud warnings, and those are what I want to look at over the next few days, and I've given each one of them a C. Creation, number 1. Continuity, number 2. Consistency, number 3. Number 4, conscience. Number 5, commissioning. Number 6, commotion. Number 7, compulsion. And number 8, curiosity. So we're going to look at those. But I want us to, in today's study, to look at number 1, creation. The Bible said that we must be prepared to give an answer for the faith that's in us. And so I'm not trying to convince those of you who love the Lord today about the existence of God or the proof of creation. But I am seeking to equip you with some things which you may find helpful when you meet people who object to belief in our Creator God. And so I hope this will be helpful to you. As we consider the justness of the flood, then let me add that no one has an excuse for atheism or Gnosticism. The Apostle Paul, he presents creation as the first evidence of divine existence and intervention. The intricacies of the world in which we live is sufficient evidence for anyone with an open mind. You see, the theory of evolution was just that, a theory, without scientific evidence or support as an explanation to explain life without God. The atheist, the agnostic, had to find a way to explain how all this came about if there was no God. And so it was launched by a series of deliberate hoaxes. I want you to get my book, Creation versus Evolution. You can order it from my bookstore at pgmi.org and download it from there. But I share in that how this theory of the evolution of humanity, the evolution of man, was launched by a series of deliberate hoaxes. And it wasn't until 50 years that the British Museum admitted that there had been a series of hoaxes which were not true. But by that time, it had been so ingrained in universities and schools and colleges that it continued to be taught as though it was a fact, even though the whole thing was based on hoax. For example, a pig's tooth was used to create a whole stooped humanoid, deliberately intended to deceive people until the idea became accepted and to rob people of faith. We're all familiar with those hairy, stooped prehistoric men, yet nothing has ever been found which indicates that such hairy creatures ever existed. The reality is they've only ever existed in school textbooks and the minds of atheists trying to deceive young people. No hair-covered skin has ever been found, yet the drawings appear in every university and school textbook as though they were based on fact rather than total fiction. The theory of evolution is nothing more than an excuse for atheists and agnostics to hold on to their unbelief. It is a religion and not science. If someone handed you a watch and told you that it resulted from an explosion in a metalwork factory, would you believe them? Yet multitudes living in this amazing, intricate, and vast universe refuse to acknowledge the Creator. The fact, as I said, that we know when eclipses are going to take place hundreds of years in advance shows that the universe runs with amazing split-second precision. Thus, from this first evidence of creation, we see that even if there were no preacher, mankind would still have no excuse for failing to acknowledge and follow the Creator. So this was the first evidence that everyone who perished in the flood had, and that people have today. Atheists love to pretend that those of us who accept the Bible's account of origins are unscientific, but this is far from the truth. Evolution, as I said, is a religious belief. It's devoid of any scientific support. It's a belief that nothing came from, a belief that everything came from nothing. But many of the greatest scientists and thinkers of the past 150 years not only find the Bible's account of creation far more credible, but reject the theory of evolution as scientifically impossible. When you study this, as I did in some depth at one point, you see that there isn't a theory of evolution. There are differing theories of evolution, which scientists who believe one oppose the other view. But we're taught as though theory of evolution is something that's been proved and accepted by science. Take, for example, Professor Sir John Ambrose Fleming, M.A., Doctor of Science, whose Blue Institute of Physics plaque, commemorative plaque, is on the Norman Lockyer Observatory in Sidmouth. And Professor Fleming was the first president of the Evolution Protest Movement, which changed its name in 1981 to the Creation Science Movement. I encourage you to go on the website and look up the Creation Science Movement. It's fascinating, primarily made up of scientists who do not believe in the theory of evolution and believe in creation. And he was professor of electronic engineering at the University College of London, inventor of the thermionic valve, which made radio possible. His research resulted in the development of the telephone, electric lights, and radio. And he wrote many books, 90 scientific papers, and received awards from learned societies in the UK and the USA. But among his writings against the evolutionary theory was a book called Modern Anthropology versus Biblical Statements on Human Origin in 1935. I don't know why back then they always had such long titles for books. Evolution and Revelation, and another book called Nature and the Supernatural. Professor Fleming is just one of thousands of great minds who accepted the account of the origin of the universe and of human life. Now, I especially recommend, we're going to continue with this tomorrow, but I especially recommend to you the Creation series by Dennis Lindsay, my friend Dennis Lindsay, president of Christ for the Nations Bible Institute in Dallas. He was the son of Gordon Lindsay, the founder of the Voice of Healing movement and the Voice of Healing magazine. And he wrote 17 books, many containing numerous quotes from eminent scientists showing that the theory of evolution is scientifically impossible. So I encourage you to research this and encourage any who doubt to research it, because there are answers for the inquiring mind. I can't wait to tell you more, but I'm going to have to wait till our next broadcast. So join me for the next broadcast.